and welcome to SEC Sports Roundtable. I'm your host, Shane Bailey. We've got same group as last week. We still have Drew Young missing in action, finishing up some work things on his new position, so he's out of town doing some much needed training because he needs all the help he can get. But we do have the same folks back, so we'll welcome you back, John.
How's it going?
Good, thanks. Yourself? Good. Blair smiling?
Good to be back. Almost Merry Christmas time.
Almost. We've got the Christmas tree. We have set decorations for those that are watching us on YouTube. You're going to know when this was recorded because we are recording, somewhere right around the Christmas holidays. So just about less than a week, I guess. No,
Right.
8 days, 9 days. I don't know.
No, it's next Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Next Sunday. So there we go. Just a week from recording day. I do have to say that I like your hat.
You're welcome.
You wore that just for me, right?
I did.
Who is your baseball team? Not to get off of a subject from, before we even get started, but who is your major league team?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Growing up in South Mississippi, I never really, you pulled a little bit for the Braves because they were winning, all that kind of stuff, but my dad always grew up a big Cubs fan, so I always watched the Cubs because you could always get the WGN or whatever it is, and then...
I'm going to have to break down and I guess do the MLB package because now that Fox Sports has come in, you get maybe a third of the games you used to on WGN. Used to be you could always catch a game, and now you just got to schedule your week around it just to watch a Cubs game on WGN.
Yeah, I think I'm actually going to fall into the Cubs. All it takes is one trip to Wrigley, and so... It
is a special place.
Yeah, for those that don't know, my dad was a huge Cubs fan, and for his birthday and Father's Day last year, he had never been to Chicago, so took him to a Cubs game, and we've actually made another trip there, so it's turned out to be a pretty cool place. So got a 2-year-old boy, so he might become a Cubs fan because I might need excuses to go to Wrigley.
Well, I will say I grew up watching the Cubs on WGN. It was either them or we had TBS, so it was going to be the Braves or the Cubs. Even though I was close to Cincinnati, I watched some Reds games, but mostly the only ones you watched on TV every time, at least when I was growing up, was one of the super networks as they called them. And so I became a Cubs fan early on and got to take my first trip to Wrigley in college, and it brought goosebumps to the back of your neck. The hair started standing and stuff. It was a good trip. Do you have a major league team there? You're a Braves fan, aren't you?
No, I like all Philly sports.
Okay.
Nice.
So the Phillies have been my team since I was a little kid, and
That's not bad.
no.
Now, as a
You
kid,
don't throw batteries or anything like that.
No, I don't. No.
as a kid, I liked the Phillies. Mike Schmidt and all those guys, they were
Yeah.
fun with the powder blues, and
That's right.
that was a good time to watch the Phillies play.
Oh yeah, their new stadium is awesome. I don't know if you guys have been, but it's really nice.
Now that's something that would be neat is to take a trip from every state, take your kid every year to a different stadium.
Now in Philly, don't they have like the big athletic complex where they got the football, baseball, all in the same location almost, right?
Yeah, they do. It's pretty much it's like a 4x4 block of just one stadium after the other, kind of in a big square.
Yeah, they say it's pretty easy accessible. I think it helps out with parking because typically you can actually park in the other stadiums and stuff. It's supposed to be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really nice.
So, do you ever run into that problem like Texas did? And we've gone way off base, but I think last year the Rangers had a game during either the playoffs, and was it the Cowboys that had a football game the same day or something? So both stadiums were going to be used the same day.
I think didn't Philly run that? Didn't they
It was
run
when they
that
played
with
the Giants in the playoffs, and then was it
Yeah, they played like a football game.
Yeah, I was trying to think. Was it football? It must have been football, baseball.
Yeah,
I guess.
but it ended up on the same night, which they had to kind of alternate it, so it was pretty crazy.
Now those stadiums are literally right next to each other.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a little bit of a problem.
Well, in Texas they shared a parking lot too,
Yeah.
so that was causing a lot of problems because it was going to be hard to get in and get out for those teams.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
I guess unless you were wanting to go to the second game, and you had to get there 2.5 hours earlier than you have to just to beat the traffic leaving. So
Tell you what, if Nashville gets that little downtown park, you might become a big Sounds fan.
well, and
Granted.
they're the Brewers
Yeah.
farm system, so that's going to be a tough pill. In the same division as the Cubs.
That's right.
Maybe we get some realignment like we've got in hockey this year. They're talking there might be some realignment. Well, I guess they did with Houston leaving the Central. So,
Yeah.
so there's some realignment talking MLB, but it's not going to affect the Brewers. But so we'll see how that goes. But the new stadium in Nashville, if that happens, it'd be nice.
You think they're going to keep them AAA?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Nashville can't support a professional program
Yeah.
in that one, and still think about short term. I mean, short term being 5 to 10 years, trying to get an NBA team, which is what they'd really like to do.
Yeah.
I think that they probably missed their chance there when they lost the Grizzlies to Memphis. I think that was kind of a tough
Yeah.
deal. I don't know.
I don't even think they're really in play for it because I mean
Well,
Nashville just doesn't have the capacity to handle it, and when you got one of them, you might as well have NFL, and they got hockey. So I think they're fine right now. I think the AAA downtown will help out
Yes.
because right now you're in a 35-year-old stadium, and if you get an urban ballpark down on the river, that's going to be more of a family-friendly, cost-effective sporting event. I think I like that better than even having a Major League Baseball.
Yeah, and that's, I think you hit the last nail on the head right there, cost effective. I mean, because if you go to even a Tennessee Volunteer game, those tickets aren't cheap, and the Titans aren't cheap. The Predators, they've got some packages, but, to get a good seat and watch that game, that's not cheap. But a Sounds game, minor league baseball program, you can get a ticket pretty cheap to a lot of games there, and still be able to do that.
Still kind of has a little bit of the innocence of what baseball should be, and it's not the big, huge. That's the one thing about baseball I do like is that you still have some of the old stadiums that still have the ambiance of the way the old American pastime should be.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the last thing, and we're going to get on to the SEC, but the mayor in Nashville, Carl Dean, I think his legacy he's wanting to leave is putting his stamp on the beautification of Nashville. He's doing that by the convention center.
Have you seen that place?
That monstrosity.
Man, that place's footprint is going to be ridiculous.
It's nuts, yeah.
But also, for those who have ever been to Nashville Titans game, right next to there's just the most ugliest dump of a scrap metal yard, and that's where the baseball field would probably go, and that would just change the whole landscape of coming into Nashville.
Yeah, the thing that really topped it off was that the owners of the Sounds, which have really come in the last 3 years and put their money where their mouth is, and spent millions of dollars on cleaning up the old facility with anticipation to get the new one. But they came out because I think they had 3 or 4 places that were slotted in the survey, but they chose that East Park area there to that they would put the most money behind. So that kind of dictates.
So now that you're caught up on the Nashville sports scene, we're going to get started with the SEC Sports Roundtable, which is what we're all about. And there's ties here in Nashville with Vanderbilt. They're having some upgrades as well. But let's start off and get some housekeeping issues out of the way. Two-a-days is going strong. Facebook just blew it out of the water. But Twitter, we'd still love some more followers. And if you're not familiar with what we're doing with two-a-days, every day in the month of December, our goal is to try to get 2 people to either like our Facebook page or to start following us on Twitter. So that would be an additional 62 people for Facebook and Twitter to come out there and like us. And so if you're watching this, listening to this, tell your friends, tweet it out, go follow us, say, follow these guys. They're enjoyable. They're going to talk about Nashville all day and not talk about any SEC sports. But that's our goal. We've got another week or so left in the month. And so let's try to finish this strong. If you are out there, go like us on Facebook. You can look for SEC Sports Roundtable, or we shorten that a lot of times, and most of the ways to find us, it's easy, SECSRT. Facebook.com/SECSRT is our landing page. Our Twitter is at SECSRT. Our YouTube channel is at SECSRT as well. So we have that theme going. Just go find us there, and that's also our website address. So lots of ways to find us. You can also listen a number of ways, and that's what we're here doing. We're doing a podcast. We're doing it for free for you guys as well as for our enjoyment. But mostly to just get out and talk sports. And you can find that on the website, on iTunes, on Stitcher Radio, as well as on YouTube. So that's the housekeeping issues on how to find us and what we're up to right now. We're going to get started with some news. Not a whole lot of news really has occurred this week in the SEC. Most of it's been coaching related, I think. A few things there we'll get just knocked off real quick is some contract extensions. You know, Billy Donovan just got a short extension. I think he was through 2014. He got a 2-year extension, I think. So he's now through 2016. I don't remember what the exact details on the contract were, but
I think it's $3.5 million now he's gonna get paid per season.
so you know he's barely making minimum wage. So
That's right.
we feel sorry for those guys.
I think you said he had, what, 71% winning percentage?
Yeah,
so
7-11.
So that's a pretty good move.
And then the other coaching extension, and this is football related, and then we'll stay with the football area for a little bit, and that's going to be the old ball coach. Got a little extension down in South Carolina, and so he's through 2015 though, so we're another year shorter, but his contract was up pretty soon.
Yeah, actually, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was due next year, and I think they went stretched out. And you know, he's always said that. I read an article today. He's always said that he didn't want to be coaching into his 60s, and or that when he was at Florida, when they talked about it, that he was going to coach 3 or 4 more years, and then he was going to enjoy his life. And they said the other day that he said he'd be coaching 3 or 4 more years, and then he'll be enjoying his life. So I think for him, I think he's there for at least a couple more years. I don't know if he gets to, I don't know, 2015 might be a good spot for him, but I think he's invested too much over the last 5 or 6 years for him to just say, let me kind of walk away. I think he's got things rolling there. They're recruiting, especially in state, better than they've ever done that. They're dominating Clemson with 3 straight victories. So I think he kind of wants to reap some of the rewards of being there for a little bit.
Yeah, especially with his team he's got next year. I mean, they got a lot of people coming back. Lattimore should be healthy. You know, another year of Connor Shaw.
Yeah.
It should be pretty decent. I mean, it's like
Their
you said,
defense is going to be, because the word is the Taylor kid that they thought was just going to leave automatically, the big defensive end. They're saying that he might actually stay. If he does, then their defensive line is just going to be, again, ridiculous.
Well, I'm sorry, go on,
I
John.
was gonna say, you know, and it probably also depends too about who he has and who he loses the coaching wise. You know, if Ellis Johnson were to go somewhere, it's probably gonna hurt him in recruiting. So I think it all depends. You know, but he might as well ride the wave that he's on right now, and not the time to go for sure.
And that's kind of what I was thinking, was that it took him a few more years longer than I think he expected it to build up the program so that he didn't have to invest so much time till he got the assistants around and the recruiting around, so that he could, you know, as Joe Paterno and Bobby Bowden in Florida State, you know, they were the head coaches, but realistically they weren't running all the day-to-day operations. And I think that's kind of what he's built up in South Carolina, is that, you know, from the day-to-day operations, he knows what's going on, but he doesn't have his hands on every single thing anymore. He can still go out and play that round of golf when he wants to, still be involved with the recruiting and the aspects of coaching that he loves and that he gets enjoyment out of, and then has other people to do those things that he doesn't like as much. And so as long as those things stay in place and South Carolina continues on the path they are, I could see him easily finishing up this contract and maybe one more extension, but that's just me talking. Who knows what he's actually thinking.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna go anywhere else ever. He's gonna retire at South Carolina.
Hey, when you're at South Carolina and you get automatic membership to Augusta, you pretty much make that your spot.
Yeah. So that's part of his contract with South Carolina?
Yeah, because you know Hootie Johnson, that was the crazy old guy that was the leader. He's a South Carolina grad. So Lou Holtz, and that's like one of the packages with being a South Carolina coach, is you get a membership to.
While you're coach.
Yeah. Well, no, Lou Holtz, my understanding is he's still. I mean, I think you get accepted in because of that, and it's as long as you actually
once
keep
a member,
your
always
dues.
a member.
Once you keep your dues up, I think you're good to go.
Well, he probably, and how far a trip is that to Augusta? It's probably not that very
Yeah,
far.
no, from Columbia it's like 40.
It's
It's
not
like an
far.
hour maybe.
Yeah.
So he probably takes that trip quite often.
Yeah.
As much as he loves to play golf. So yeah, he's in a good place. And so that's it on the extensions. We still have some coaching updates to do in the football realm as well. I mean, there's still some openings. The SEC really doesn't have any head coach openings anymore. And I guess we'll just kind of say today. I think we've gone far enough down this road. I think they'd all be gone that would be gone. Who knows? But you know, the thing that we were talking about last week was Ole Miss got a new coach, And if you would have said last week, before all the coaching changes came around, that Auburn was going to lose their defensive coordinator and it was because of Ole Miss, you would have thought that Malzahn was gone to Ole Miss. Who would have known that it was because Ole Miss got Arkansas State's head coach and he decides to go to Arkansas State?
Yeah.
I mean,
The weirdest thing to me is that he turned down all that money last year at Vanderbilt. I mean, unless you really thought that Auburn was going to have a stud team this year, it just, to me, it seems, maybe he thinks Arkansas State is really a jumping board, but
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine it's,
Well,
I mean, he took, what,
yeah.
$800,000 as compared to what I think Vanderbilt offered him over $3 million a year.
I think the interesting thing about the whole, I think he wants to be a head coach. Number one, I think we know that, but I think that last year he got pursued, Vanderbilt and Maryland, first call, and he just felt like those programs were going to be very difficult, I think, to deal with, even if you got the financial part of it. And so I just thought he was like, here I am, I'm hot, let me just go another year and there's going to be a different set of jobs that comes available. And when he lost out to North Carolina and Kansas, but then he didn't even get looked at Ole Miss. And then, I think he was saying, this is going to be my opportunity because they are set up to win, because he can walk in there with roughly the same tools as Hugh Freeze had. And Hugh Freeze kind of had it rolling there. I mean, he had a good recruiting class. They said he had like 18 kids that were committed that were pretty good.
They had a stud QB.
Yeah, and so, that he could walk in there, plus it's home. And it's the natural state, man. I mean, what else can you say about it? I mean, he likes the place. But the interesting thing is, check this out. Say he's going to take a $500,000 cut, which is what he does, but he's actually getting paid 4 times what the previous coach was getting paid, which was $202,000, and that guy's getting paid $1.5 million. It's just funny how it all worked out. But I mean, could you say that Arkansas State before the year that they would have the big, like the home run hire? I mean, that's a home run hire.
oh yeah. I mean for a Sun Belt school to have a name like Gus Malzahn leading their program, that's a win. I mean, and if you want to talk about it, the Sun Belt's a program as a conference has really upgraded their circumstances in the last 4 to 5 years. I mean, you saw last night if you were watching the bowls, and we're SEC country, but I mean the Raging Cajuns came back and won that game against San Diego State, so they've won a ball game in the Sun Belt. What, 3 or 4 teams we were looking at a couple weeks ago made it to a bowl game. Western just joined Division I and came in 3 years ago. They were 7-5. Arkansas State, 10-2, and had some good quality wins. And if you look at their bowl opponents for the SEC, the Sun Belt, there's a few programs there that can have some wins on their resumes as far as a bowl game.
Yeah.
It's definitely not the SEC.
Well, MTSU was in the top 25, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And before they had their quarterback go, gambling at old folks'
Man,
homes.
boy, you talk about Stockstill. He had that triple his salary in East Carolina, and he decided to stay because he had everything just laying there in front of him, and then that kid goes and does that, and it all just falls apart.
Yeah, and that's the problem with a Sun Belt school that the SEC doesn't have is they can go from competing for the Sun Belt Conference Championship one year to barely making 500.
I can tell you the one thing though. I think with Gus Malzahn, where it works, if you take the SEC out of it, I think he goes with his offense. He can go anywhere and basically put up points against anybody in the country and be successful.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
And I think in 3 years he's going to be. Now, did they ever come out with the details of his contract? Because my understanding was that they were going to have a pretty decent buyout if he left early, right?
At Arkansas State.
Yeah, I've got the details. It was released.
That's what's so interesting. We've gotten on this conversation before, but that's the weird thing about college coaching. Even in NFL, it's just kind of weird because Dan Mullen could leave tomorrow and go coach at Ole Miss, and the school would have to actually pay him money. It's one of those things that we talked about before, where you could be the best in your industry, and you're going to have at least a 2-year non-compete anywhere you go. Yeah. But in college coaching, you can just get up and leave, and they'll pay you for it.
But even in the real world, those non-competes do not hold a whole lot of water.
Yeah, but it's just kind of funny. It's just interesting how it all works out.
Some of the details are, unless you had them, John.
I don't know what I was gonna say.
It's $850 a year. Only 156,000 of that's coming from the university. So nearly
That's all
700. Yes.
Privately.
Undisclosed private sources. So booster
That's
money.
pretty consistent. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, basically, Arkansas State's putting up the same amount of money. The boosters came strong, is what that's saying. Should Malzahn get fired in the first 5 years of his contract, he would be paid $2.45 as a buyout. So $2.45 million as a buyout. If Malzahn leaves after the first year, he has a $700,000 buyout, and it declines every year that he would have to pay if he left on his own fruition.
Gotcha.
So any, 700,000 for any big SEC school, that's nothing.
Yeah, and unlike what West Virginia had, was it $4 million to?
To Michigan whenever Rodriguez, Vanderbilt selling out. Yeah.
And he's got a few small bonuses: $50,000 for winning the Sun Belt, $25,000 for making a bowl game, $75,000 for a BCS game.
I think the interesting thing, and we haven't really brought this up.
I'm sorry, I was reading on. He could win $125,000 for winning the BCS championship game. Like there's any chance in hell that Arkansas State's gonna do that, but they put that in his contract.
Slap in the face to Boise.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is like what's really going on in Auburn, because you have Ted Roof that was basically pushed out the door to take a defensive coordinator position, and these are two guys that were coordinators on a national championship. I mean, you could say all you want to about Cam Newton, but you got to give Malzahn. There's a lot of people that had really great players that screwed him up, and he actually took his talents and really put it together.
If anything, that showcase what he can do.
So I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting with what's going on in Auburn. You've got a guy that takes a $500,000 pay cut, even if he wanted to coach. I mean, that's a pretty daunting statement. And then of course you got the Michael Dyer thing that we talked about last week, which
did anything new come out from that other than
Chiswick's just gonna keep his mouth shut, and when he basically said that he doesn't talk about anybody that's not here, and that if he's back on the team, that he accomplished everything he's supposed to be doing. And I'm hearing that from some of my Auburn buddies that he's played his last game at Auburn, so so there's obviously some chemistry issues, and then I think John mentioned that Trooper Taylor's kind of underhanded that if he's not seriously taking a look at the offensive coordinator position, that he might be up for a bidding to get out of there. He's kind of pulled that before at Oklahoma State, and so it's just one of those deals.
I say he definitely leaves. I think that if he doesn't get it, I don't think there's any way he stays. He's wanted offensive coordinator position for a while. I mean, he even wanted it here when he was at Tennessee. I think he was the wide receivers coach for like maybe 2 years. Yeah. I think that was before they brought in Clausen.
Yeah, I think it's really weird because I don't know. I just think that speaks volumes, and I think we'll find out about it. But I mean, you got two coordinators, and again, we haven't really gone down the other road that you probably want to bring up. Is that they're competing on the offensive coordinator side with Alabama and Florida. Yeah. And their two coordinator positions. So you got three. I mean,
big name schools
with a lot of money, and there's not going to be. I don't think there's going to be a ton. But I mean, you look at Will Muschamp. I mean, that's got to be a home run hire for him. He's basically got a mulligan to go back and try to get that right.
Well, and they're saying in Florida that he met with Kerwin Bell, who's a former Gator, but he's now down somewhere. Jacksonville
State, I think he's the head coach there.
Yeah.
That was one of the names they brought up. Him and Shula were the top two, I think.
Yeah, so he was actually on campus this week, the last couple of days, being interviewed for the position. Okay. To me, is that a home run name?
Well, it may not.
I mean, it
might be for Florida.
Just because of the name.
I'm not familiar with the program.
Yeah.
There were some other names that they had like 5 names, and some of the other ones, they were all from smaller schools.
Yeah.
So.
I think that's what you'll find in the coordinator position is you're most likely not going to recognize most of the names out there. I'm interested to see what Alabama does because for what everybody wants to say about McElwain, when you watched Alabama the last he was there 3 years at least. Yeah. The national championship year he was there, and then the last 2. So, that was the one thing that you could say about Alabama is they were pretty balanced offense. When they did their best in the national championship game. They let McElroy throw it a little bit when they got an SEC championship game against Florida, and he kind of shocked a lot of people. So he's pretty creative from that standpoint. It's not anything that's going to wow you, but they were always consistent. He did a great job with quarterbacks too.
Yeah, they have 2 next year that are pretty good. And they have the Sims kid, and it's going to be interesting to see really what they do. Saban doesn't seem to me like the type of person that really is going to go out and bring on a big personality either. I don't think that that's his MO, but you never know. I mean, maybe he pulls one and says, "All right, Trooper, I'll call your bluff. You want to be the OC? I'll bring you down here." I mean, and to me, I don't think it's going to necessarily happen, but maybe
Saban's not going to call anybody's bluff.
That could be a kind of shot at Auburn too. All right, you don't want to make him the OC, we'll take him. He's a great recruiter. I mean,
and I think the other thing that Alabama found out is that Kirby Smart actually put his name out of the Southern Miss job yesterday.
He took it, he said not.
And that was he actually interviewed for them. That was the only one that he's actually interviewed for. His name was kind of brought up everywhere, but so he was taking that pretty, I think, seriously. And I think it was an opportunity to actually go interview and kind of go through the process and maybe fine-tune some things, but I think he knew that he wasn't going to take that.
Yeah, and I'd say there's probably a couple of SEC jobs that'll open up next year, just from what I think, one way or the other, either being fired, people leaving.
Somebody in Orange, is that what you're thinking?
Well, I mean, there's definitely some people on the hot seat. I mean, I think if Dooley, if he doesn't win at least, I think 9 games, I think they're going to seriously consider getting rid of him. And I don't.
He's going to have to. He doesn't have to win that many.
He's
going to have
to tell you, if he wins
8
8 games, but he wins 8 games against the wrong people, and he loses, and they're not competitive another 4. I mean, it's going to be interesting next year. And I think they're going to be better.
Yeah, Hart already said. I mean, he's not so much about the wins; it's about improvement. And I mean, I think that it's like he just said. I mean, if you don't beat the right type of people. I mean, the Kentucky loss was embarrassing. I mean, it's not a team you haven't lost to them in almost 27 years.
Yeah, 26
and
years.
to sit there and lose to them, especially when he was there. And I mean, this week he was at the College of Charleston game for basketball, and he did not look happy. I mean, he kind of made a statement this week that was basically like, we need to see improvement across the board, because I mean, these aren't his guys.
Yeah. Well, I think what Hart was doing this week was getting his message out, because his football coach isn't getting his message out. And so I think what he was just doing was just laying the foundation of where he's going with the program. Because he really hasn't talked that much, but he did a media blitz, Friday and Thursday and Friday, I believe.
Dooley's got his own problems too. I mean, you have Wilcox's name out there for the Arizona State job. He's worried about Sermon leaving with him. Then you had Hanstead that was talking to Ohio State about their offensive line. So I mean, Dooley needs to get his ship together.
Yeah.
He needs to keep things in line, and he needs to keep recruiting. I mean, he's been doing great recruiting. I feel like. I mean, for a team that hasn't been in the national spotlight for a long time, I feel like he's still getting still at least talking to some good recruits. But if he doesn't turn things around, there's not excuses next year. There's not this team's young. There's not this and that.
I think you can expect in SEC every year there's going to be a couple to 3 jobs that are going to come open just because of it's what have you done for me lately. So.
Yeah, I mean, I still think Rick is going to be on the hot seat next year. I mean, if they don't do well, let's say they go back and they only win 6-7 games.
Oh, if they win 6 or 7 games, it's a total different ball game.
They're not going to do that because did they just not sign the extension?
I don't think it's done yet.
It's done, whether he signed it yet or not. I mean, you know as well as I do, Rick's not stupid enough to have in this extension some crazy buyout. So why not? He's bought himself at least 2 more years at Georgia. Let's be realistic here. Dooley, yes, there's a very good opportunity for him to lose his job if he's not able to control what's going on inside. If he's not riddled with injuries, and I said that from the very beginning of this season when we looked at the SEC and we looked at each team and broke them down. I said Dooley's biggest issue and Tennessee's problem is they're thin. And if they get any injuries, and I thought it was going to be on the defensive side, I never would have thought the offense would have been that way, because that's where they were really thin. I said, but if they have a few key injuries, then they're a 6-6 team at best.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what played out. And if you would have talked to, and that's the crazy thing about this whole scenario, if you would have talked to any Tennessee fan, and I pose that question to you, that if you would have had key injuries in the offense, what do you expect your record to be? They would have said 5-7, 6-6. wow, that's exactly what happened. Why are you so upset? Now, there were a couple of games, and I'll give it to you, that Tennessee probably should have won. Kentucky game was not one of them. But they realistically could have been at 6-6.
Well, I think they beat Florida if Hunter doesn't go down that game, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a question.
Again, it's an injury-related issue.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of games that they probably could have found a way to win, and it could have come to coaching. It could have been heart, and some of that's got to go on the players for not stepping up themselves. But if he can get to 7 or 8 wins, I think 8 wins. 7, it's really, really close if he can keep his job.
Depends on who he actually beats and how
But
competitive he is.
all right, let's look at it. 8 wins. Next year, you're going to have to play 8 games in the SEC or 9?
8.
Eight.
Just staying at 8.
Okay.
And they're going to get Missouri, and they're going to get Mississippi State instead of LSU and Arkansas.
It's,
All right.
it's definitely an easier schedule.
It's going to be an easier schedule.
Except when they roll down Starkville or we come up there. I mean, it's going to be a little bit difficult.
But you've got 8 games in the SEC. You're going to have 4 out-of-conference games. You're going to have to win those regardless.
Oregon, I think, next year, so
I
we'll
don't
start
know.
with them.
All right, so you're going to win 3 of those. There again,
I could be wrong about that.
and try to look that up real quick. So that means that you're going to have to win 1 extra in the SEC.
All right, since we got on this UT rampage, because I know Drew will listen to this, I got a nice little stat that I ran across this week on UT that I thought was pretty fascinating.
I'm ready.
Do you know how many times since 1925 that they have had a losing season in football and basketball in the same year?
I want to say 1.
1.
I was going to say 2.
1977 and 78. Dude, that's
So
pretty
that's 2.
remarkable. So they're about to beat number 2.
Was that
yeah.
right after Ernie and Bernie?
I'm not sure.
That had to have been right around that time.
I don't know. I was born in '76, so
You
I don't know
celebrated-
much about 77, 78, because granted I live in Nashville, but I didn't really care about Tennessee, so I don't
I actually
really
don't
care
think the
about them.
schedule's out for next year yet.
Okay,
Because they
yeah.
added the
It's
2
going to be
teams.
in
that's right.
January.
Yeah.
But we don't have time to research to see
No.
who the contracts were. But if let's say Oregon is on the schedule for next year, that's 3 teams that they're going to, because Oregon is still reloaded. They're going to be a top 10 team
Yeah.
preseason. You're going to be hard pressed to beat Oregon. So it's going to be three games right there. You're going to have to win 5 SEC games. Kentucky, Vanderbilt. We're going to give them Missouri. We're going to think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you got to beat Mississippi State. I mean, if you're gonna keep your job, you got to beat Mississippi State, whether it's there or not.
So there's
4.
4. So now you're at 7 wins.
Yeah, and you should be able to play with Florida. You should be able to, somewhat play with Georgia, I would think. I mean,
Is
Tennessee,
Auburn on their schedule next year?
No, the only West that they're going to play is Alabama, which is their permanent, and then they're picking up Mississippi State because
And
I think and this is not official
Official,
yet, but it's kind of worked itself out through a couple of media outlets because I believe that Mississippi State was playing them at home. The other West opponent that they normally have was actually going to be away, and so they got to keep the home and how it works out. So they pretty much guaranteed that State was going to be the other one. So it's just Mississippi State and Missouri or Alabama on the west side.
so they only play 2 games in the West?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you're going to have to win. You've got a couple winnable games there. You're going to lose to Alabama. You're going to lose to Oregon. You're probably going to lose to Georgia and South Carolina. But let's face it, South Carolina and Georgia are reloading again. They're going to be top 15 preseason favorites. Tennessee is going to be hard pressed to be in the top 40.
Yeah.
So
But there's things that Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee's got a big year. I mean, I saw from a recruiting standpoint. I mean, they can't backfill anybody in January if they go to 25 scholarships. I think they got to cut 9 scholarship players, so they got a big numbers issue. Derek Dooley's got a big off season for him. And
Yeah, so
I
that- but
don't
that's-
think that's underestimated at all.
So there's a possibility to win 8 games next year, and if you can do that and things go out right, and you're at a Chick-fil-A or you're at a Capital One Bowl as opposed to the Liberty or the Franklin American or the BBVA Compass Bowl, if you can avoid one of those 3 bowl games and go to any of the other 9 games or 8 bowl games that the SEC slated for, you're here another year.
I don't think you can go in. I don't think they'll go into it and say, "Hey, there's a certain number you got to win."
There's
I
not,
think it's how you play the game.
but
It's gotta,
there again, you can back into that
Right.
number.
yeah, you can back into it as the season goes on, but it's going to be one of those things where I think you go, well, if he wins 7, it's going to be done, or if he wins 8, I think it's going to be a feel thing throughout the year, and I think it'll play out for everybody.
I think 8's going to be the number, and I think you're going to have to come up with a quality win or 2.
I'm going ahead and saying that you just might as well chalk up an L against Mississippi State. I'm just going to say that right now.
So on December 20,
That's a loss.
December
L
18th,
equals loss. by the way.
December 18th, 2011.
That's right. Chalk it up.
Write it down.
Yeah.
Book it.
Yeah, book it.
As a local personality, sometimes used to say when he had a radio show that he's on sabbatical for.
Yeah.
Go on, John. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I would take an L to Mississippi State if we could take W's against Georgia and Alabama. That'd be fine with me.
Hey, you can want in one hand.
That's right. Hey, I'm sitting there going, hey, we played Kentucky and Tennessee in the East. Whew. I'm all for that. So.
But I don't know how we got so far
I
down the UT raffle with, and Drew's not even, but John's a UT guy.
I'm blaming it on John.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm gonna blame it on Drew.
Yeah. Yeah, it's blame on Drew.
But so
Or Drew's brother. That would be even better.
So with that being said, you know, there's going to be some potential openings in coaching. That's what got us started on this. Dooley, Joker Phillips, you know, he's going to have to prove some things. He's going to definitely have to make a bowl game.
Hugh Freeze. I mean, I'm sorry. I apologize. He'll be his first year.
Plus, you just don't know.
He's gonna
You just gotta wait till year 2 before he gets on hot
You
seat.
never know really who's gonna leave. You know, you really don't.
Oh, you don't? Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
have a clue.
But all the other positions, you don't see any change.
Yeah, but you don't know what's the big domino that's going to fall. Is Mac Brown, you know, if he decides to hang it up, or you know, something like that, like the Ohio State that happened this year. You know, you just happen to have a guy that's sitting out. But even Penn State hasn't fallen yet. So I mean, we could still have a shakeup in the SEC before then. So that's kind of a hard thing to predict. But I can guarantee you 2 to 3 jobs we'll be seriously taking a look at next year because that's just the state of the SEC.
But I mean, if you look at most of the programs, they're all pretty solidified and they've bought themselves a year.
I mean, Auburn for crying out loud won a national championship and they don't have the 2 coordinators.
Yeah.
And one was pushed out the door and one decided to leave for a $500,000 pay cut a year after they won the national championship. So, and they went 7-5, totally, you know, kind of what most people expected.
They stumbled to a 7-5.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, they
as well as they played at the very beginning of the year, they kind of shocked some people. But I mean, well, they played horrible at the beginning of the year too.
That's the thing. They played bad and still won, and that's how they were able to get to 7-5. Because once they started playing the meat of the SEC schedule, you know, their ineptness really showed up, and they got some losses.
Yeah.
So we could sit down and back into it, and maybe come up with 2 coaches, maybe 3 that could be on the hot seat next year. The others would be surprises out of left field, and those are always possible. So to give you a quick rundown on the coaching updates, Florida still has an offensive coordinator position open. Alabama has an offensive coordinator position, and tell you, Charlie Weiss went to Kansas. McElwain went to Colorado State. Auburn has both an offensive and defensive coordinator. Malzahn went to Arkansas State, and
Ted Roof went to defense coordinator at Central Florida.
So
not even allowed to move.
He just had to get out, basically.
Do you think they know something's coming? Do you think Malzahn knows? Do you think that
I think people are hinting towards that, but I think there was obviously some chemistry issues that were going on, and you know, to be honest with you, I think Malzahn carried more of a name than Chiswick did. I think a lot of people made that
Chiswick came in
association.
3 years. Was it 3 years ago now,
Yeah.
or 4?
3.
It's
Yeah.
like who is this guy?
Second year, yeah.
And then he switched offensive coordinators mid-season, did he not?
No, Malzahn came with him from the get-go, if I'm not mistaken.
Was
Yeah.
he? Yeah, he
I
was
thought-
at Toledo, right?
No, he was at Iowa State.
Oh,
in 5
no,
19.
Chiswick was, but I'm
Yeah.
saying Malzahn, wasn't he? Was he?
He was
at Toledo. Because wasn't he like? How did he start? He was a package deal from high school.
No, he was at Tulsa, wasn't he?
Tulsa, that was
Tulsa,
it.
yeah.
He was a quarterback guy with Mustang, right?
Yeah, he was a high school. Yeah, he was a high school bred. Yeah, but he went to Arkansas, and then that debacle happened. Then he went to Tulsa, and then over to Auburn.
So that's the coaching updates, and so maybe next week there'll be some clarity on where those positions might be filled. Let's talk a little basketball. Let's switch.
All right.
Let's switch sports completely.
Another rough week for the Vols.
I mean, yeah, if you want to get off on the Vols right quick, I mean, I'll be more than happy to jump in on that. I think, obviously, we talked last week, if I'm not mistaken, about the attendance at the Austin Peay game. But I mean, again, they played again this week, and I think what I was saying earlier is that all the shine that they actually kind of built up and credit that they got in Hawaii, it's pretty much gone. I mean, they're what now, 3-6 or 3-7 or 4-7, maybe 4-6, something like that.
3-7, 3-6. Okay.
I've got it.
I don't know if that was updated the last time I saw, but I mean, they just it's just they
3-6,
yeah, they can't defend anybody, which
Lost.
I thought that's what they could do.
and they've lost 4 in a row.
Yeah.
No, I think it brings back to what I said last week. There's just no leadership. There's not one person who you look at as the go-to. I think Golden has a great opportunity, and so should Mayman as being the team leader. But there's just nobody. Cam Tatum is terrible. I mean, he has, there's no heart there.
He's a great he's a great fourth option
Yeah.
if you've got a good
But if you look, the new guys that have come on under Martin's recruiting class, those have really been the guys that have been, if you want to call them bright spots, but really, I mean, you had Miller this week. He had like a 13-point first half. It's just not really. They just don't have any leadership.
Yeah.
There's no go-to guy. That's really all you can say. They look lost out there. Kenny Hall, I mean, for being 6'10", he's like zero coordination.
Yeah, I mean they're just struggling all across the board, and it's just not getting good. And also like South Carolina, we saw South Carolina lose to Elon, they lose to this. They go to Las Vegas, and in the first half was playing with North Carolina, and then yesterday they played Ohio State, and made a pretty good ball game out of it. I know Sullinger went down early, but I think the concerning factor for South Carolina on that was that Ohio State had as many fans as they did in their own place. But South Carolina, I think, is going to be a little bit better than what we possibly had, and then Tennessee, we were thinking it was going to be better than what we thought, and so they've kind of taken a little bit of a reversal there.
And just looking at the game, I don't know. I think Tennessee should definitely press more on defense. They have a lot of long guys, and I remember back to Bruce's first year when he had just got those players. They really that's where they made their money from is they were pressing, they were causing a lot of turnovers. I just don't see that, and I think that's something you need to go to, especially when you have the length that they do.
Yeah.
They're not playing 6'4" Dane Bradshaw at center anymore. I mean, you have the length, you have the size. You should use that to your advantage.
Yeah, I think Golden's their problem because. Not their only problem, but I think the problem he has is that he was obviously in high school it was an offensive-minded point guard, so he didn't really know how to play point guard, so he's still learning that. So, he puts up unnecessary shots every once in a while, and when you have that, and they don't have the guy that they can go, hey, give me the ball, let me take it from here type of deal.
That's their main issue, and it's leadership, but it's not so much leadership of the program, it's leadership on the court, and it's that guy that can drive the tempo, that point guard that can take control of the game and dictate where the ball needs to go, who needs to be shooting, and controlling the tempo of the ball game, and that's where they're missing offensively. I think defensively they're going to be fine, and as much as I hate to say this, I do not want to see Tennessee come February. Because they're losing some games that they should be winning from a point standpoint, as far as they have more talent on the court than the opponent. But what he's doing is he's installing his offense and the way he wants to play basketball. And the thing about it is his players have bought into that. If you watch those guys play, they want to play his style of ball game, which is completely different than what Bruce Pearl did last year. And if that happens, and they are able to show improvement on that, they're going to be a better team come January, come February. Now, it might be too little too late for tournament time. Their only chance at that point is to win the SEC championship tournament. But it's a team that come February, if these things that I'm seeing today are really happening, I don't want to see Kentucky have to play them like February.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what it comes down to. They just don't have a point guard. Because it's like you said, I don't really think that Trey Golden should be the point guard. I think he's a much better 2, but then who do you move over there? Because
Yeah.
you also have McCray. What is McCray going to play? He's really like a 2-3. You don't have it, and you know, I think that eventually they want Washburn to, you know, take that over, but he's not really a true point guard. I don't know if they can get it together. I hope they can. I just think that they're going to have to use a gimmick,
Yeah.
say, to
Well,
really get
yeah.
through the season.
I think you're just going to see Tennessee, you know, win 3 in a row and, you know, lose 4 out of 5 and then, you know, maybe go 2 out of 3. I think they're going to be inconsistent all year, and you know, they're going to have some bright spots and they're obviously going to have some down spots as well. So we're kind of getting to where we can kind of get a feel for a lot of teams, but you really don't know until we get about mid-January, get into conference play, because we don't really know how good the SEC schools are until they get into, you know, conference play, and it becomes a little bit more clear when people go on the road and that type of stuff. So.
And Tennessee's bringing up the bottom. And you mentioned South Carolina. I think for a 4-6 team, I think they're better than everybody thought they would be. So that, you know, that's a little more improvement.
Yeah.
I keep going up the records. We're going from bottom to worst from the basketball standpoint. You know, Vanderbilt, that team 6-4. Who would have thought that they would have been 6-4 with Festus Ezeli back for 2 of those?
With 3 losses at home.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's I mean, and of course, you know, the loss they had yesterday, Indiana State, who obviously the Sycamores are a pretty good ball team. They're 8-2, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So they got a pretty good little squad, and I remember them making a little bit of a run last year, and and I believe they got in late in the NCAA tournament, right? And so they obviously are a good team, but you know, Vanderbilt was off 10 days. I read today that Stallings, over the 10-day period, they had obviously final exams, which is a little bit of a different scenario than any other SEC school.
They took their final exam seriously.
Yeah, exactly. And supposedly they had hard times actually scheduling practices. When they did have practices, they didn't have everybody there. So
It was
you just
flat, no excitement. I would say that too.
Yeah, and so I think they came out obviously a little bit flat with a 10-day layoff. But again, talking about leadership, that's a team that's got point guard issues still. You got Brad Tinsley, who's a gutsy player, but he is very limited on what he can actually do. But they don't have that guy that can get in your face or just to take over a game and say, look, let me take control of this thing. You know, Jeffrey Taylor, the last 2 games, is 30 and 21, and they barely win they barely win at Davidson, and then they don't even have a shot yesterday. So you know, they got to figure out some stuff. But Vanderbilt's a team that, once they figure it out, they may figure it out in early February, but they are a type of team that it may be beneficial for them to get closer down to, you know, be playing their best ball at the end of the year, because I think they're going to work some stuff out.
They have a ton of talent. They just need people to play together. They need, you know, you can have Jeffrey Taylor. He needs to go for 20, you know, and then it's like John Jenkins has disappeared.
Yeah,
they don't really get Festus into the rotation. I mean, I know he's coming back, but it just seems like they get one guy going and that's it, and it kind of just stops. You know, it's not. They need to work on working as a team. But I kind of agree with you. They're in the same spot where they need to just really figure out they need to more figure out their roles.
Right.
I think that's the problem.
And I think that usually comes, but with Festus being out and now having to kind of get in there, you know. But I still think the thing that's gonna hurt them is, number one, John Jenkins can't guard anybody. Number one on defense, and the other thing is they have a hard time handling ball pressure. So if you get quick guards on them, you know, their point guard issue, and in tournament play, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it is.
But now it might come back. You know, one thing that Vanderbilt has had against them the last, was it three years in a row they've been to the tournament and lost first round?
I think it's 3. Yeah.
So, you know, maybe this adversity at the beginning of the season will help them as they get.
You know, maybe they won't peak early. You know, because I think we could all say that they peaked a little bit last year and those years before, and that's the one thing that you can't do is peak early and start playing some tough ball games, you know, towards the end of the year. So it may be a hidden gem for them that in a month from now we may have a different story.
Yeah, and then let's just keep going up the list. Arkansas's 6-3 so far this week. You know, the jury's still out on what they have with their coach, and we won't.
And they lost. Didn't they lose Powell? I think he lost like to leg injury.
Forward.
Yeah.
So he's out a couple weeks, or do we know?
No, I think he's done.
Done for
I
the
think
season?
he's done for a year, which is a huge blow to them, because he was He's a big time player, but
Yeah, he was
unless I'm
averaging
totally.
19.5 points a game.
So that makes the average West that much less
Yeah.
attractive for Alabama and Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And LSU's surprised everybody, I think, with 7-3
Yeah.
so far. Same with Alabama. They're to me, I think I'm surprised that they lost 3.
Yeah, they lost 3 out of the last 4.
Yeah. So
But they lose to Kansas State yesterday. Kansas State's pretty
At-
good
at
at
Kansas
Kansas State. They also lost to Georgetown at home, which
And
we
that was-
all are going to know the Big East, and Georgetown is a pretty solid team. So
yeah, when you looked at that, I mean, what do they rank? They're top 10 right now, Georgetown.
Georgetown, I don't even think was ranked when they beat Alabama, if I'm not mistaken.
No, they didn't start the year ranked. Let's see.
So, but they'll get there
Yeah.
because they're just in the Big East. I mean, that's the problem. The Big East can have the number 10 team, and the Big East could be, top 30.
Yeah.
I mean, so.
No, you're correct. I mean, look at the Big East Challenge, how bad they controlled the SEC
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago.
But see, that's the thing. That's the thing that worries me about Alabama, and it's the thing that I mentioned the last time is that they got Relaford, they got Tony Mitchell, who is as angry as a person goes to the rack that I've ever seen. I mean, when he makes up his mind that he's taking it to the rack and dunking, he's going to dunk. They got Jamal Green, but the problem with them is that they get a little erratic out on the perimeter and they start forcing up shots. They did that last night. Kansas State put a little pressure on them. They started turning the ball over. So their guard play has got to get better, before they kind of take that next step. But I'm surprised that they're not playing very well right now. So
Yeah. Next, we're going to look at Florida. They're 7-2 right now.
they're a real deal.
Yeah, they looked real good. I was watching their game.
Yeah, they basically took Texas A&M out and just wore them
Just won,
out.
I think it
Yeah.
was 20.
And Texas A&M's got 2 losses on the year. One's to Florida, one's to Mississippi State in Madison Square Garden, and we barely snuck that one out. But Texas A&M's a good team, and I think they're top 20, right? Yeah. So, but Florida's gonna be good. I mean, they got the guard play, and then they got Patrick Young, and the Bill kid is coming on that's playing really well. They got terrible orange jerseys, by the way. They wore
Those
yesterday.
were awful.
And their 2 losses, though, if you look at those, that was Ohio State and Syracuse.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
it's not
And
like
Syracuse went into overtime at Syracuse, right? In the Big East.
That's
Was
the
it
number 1
overtime?
team, yeah. And I was just looking
That
at
was
the
a
Big
great
East
game.
when you were talking about Georgetown. Georgetown's ranked 17th, and they're the 5th team in the Big
Big
East.
East,
It's
right.
sick. I mean, I watched the Louisville game against Memphis. They looked really good.
Yeah.
I mean, yesterday that was.
I think they're a little bit higher. I don't think they're a top 5, but it was crazy, man. This is kind of off topic because I watched this yesterday, and you're a Kentucky guy, so you'll like somewhat talk about Louisville, maybe, I don't know. But I sat there and watched that Louisville-Memphis game yesterday,
Yeah.
and every time I was watching it, I was sitting there going, man, every time I turn around, Louisville's either turning the ball over or they're doing something stupid. Memphis is on a fast break. They're getting fouled. They're making a shot. And I keep looking, and Louisville's up 10 points. It's like they get you in this chaotic world, and the next thing you know, you're down 10 points, and you just are constantly in this battle.
Yeah. I mean, they played 11 people yesterday in the first half. I mean, they have a ton of depth, and I think that they had on there 3 other players.
Kentucky did play 11 players the whole game.
Yeah. Siva, Couric, and one of their other guys aren't even on scholarship.
Yeah.
Kurt's dad's like a neurosurgeon. I think Siva's on maybe academic scholarship, and I can't remember who the other one was. Oh, the other guy, one of the Smiths, is J.R. Smith's brother.
Yeah.
So, he's got plenty
Yeah,
of
stepbrother,
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
So,
Kristen, yeah.
it's nice to be able to have, you'll probably really have 10 people who could actually be on scholarship, or maybe even 11,
Yeah.
with 3 not.
And then we'll keep moving on.
No.
Next is
Yeah, enough of Louisville on the Big East.
On Big East.
and go back to the SEC.
This Kentucky guy doesn't like this at
He
all.
hated it.
And I don't understand the hatred that Kentucky fans have for Louisville, to be perfectly honest. As long as Kentucky's not playing Louisville, I don't care what they do. I don't care if they win, they lose, whatever. Go Cards, that's fine. L yes, as they used to say when in the old days of football when Paterno was there.
Well, I know we're not to them yet, but did you hear about the new rub? There was designs out this week. I guess they showed it.
I haven't seen those
You
yet.
heard it?
No, I know that they've been talking about a new redesigned Rupp Arena since when I was in high school in the 90s and 80s. So I mean, and that was only 10, 15 years
It
after
only
it's
got
been built.
heightened with the center got up and they can't play.
It's
That's
gonna-
nice.
contract
That-
out.
It's going to be serious now that the young center
And
is
the young center is
is
ridiculous.
top notch. I mean,
So nice.
that's Louisville's bid for an NBA program,
Yeah.
and you can see Louisville getting one before Nashville. How we were
Right.
talking about that at the beginning. Go off on that tangent again. Louisville put the young center there with KFC money for the simple fact that they want to get a NBA program.
Oh, yeah.
Well, their closest, I mean, plus the closest thing to them would be, I guess, Indianapolis would be the closest team.
Or us down here.
Yeah, well, us would be Atlanta,
Memphis,
I guess, right?
yeah.
Or Memphis, yes.
Memphis.
Memphis.
No, here in Nashville. I mean, it's about 3 hours either way to
Oh, okay.
Indy, or isn't it about 3 hours to Indy
A little bit further than that.
from Louisville?
Oh, from Louisville to Indy?
Yeah, probably.
I think it's about 3 hours, and it's about 3 hours here. So we're about the same as a sports market. I mean, the Titans are
But
up
Louisville
there.
would
Or Cincinnati.
Louisville
you
would
could
do
attract
better.
Cincinnati.
Yeah, you would do a better job in an NBA basketball world that Louisville is. They
Kentucky,
would
just
support
Kentucky
that.
in general, and then plus you have the Southern Indiana people that are also crazy about basketball.
Yeah,
so-
and you've got a good corporate center there that can support it. But yeah, no, the Yum Center getting there has really ramped up Lexington and Rupp Arena, and the talks of let's get him something that's going to be top notch. I mean, because Rupp Arena they don't even have any luxury suites. I mean, it's they've had some minor upgrades, especially to like the concessions
Yeah.
and things like that outside, but the
And then
seats
they got
inside.
the ridiculous practice facility, but other than that,
Everything inside that arena really hasn't changed much since they started. But we'll talk about Kentucky and their week here in a few more minutes because they're a little further up the list. But a team that surprised some people as far as their wins is Mississippi. That's next. They're 9-1.
yeah, they lost last night.
So
Southern Miss.
9-2. Well, there we go.
So
Back
no,
to reality.
Southern Miss is not bad. I mean, it's Larry Eustacia, but they played at Southern Miss. But Ole Miss and Andy Kennedy said last night that they've been kind of playing on that edge a little bit, where
Yeah.
they won at DePaul when everything was kind of going around. So they've had
Well,
about
they
the
won
last
at
5
DePaul
games.
and Penn State both by like
Yeah.
just 1 or 2 points.
Right,
So I
and-
mean, they
I think their last 5 games has been within the last minute taken down to, and he said we made a couple of plays to win those games, and we didn't make the plays to win it last night. So they lost 86-82, went down to the last couple of minutes. But I think they're going to be. I mean, again, I think they're going to be decent. They're young, and they also have the ability with a lot more length this year. But I thought it was a pretty interesting stat. Reginald Bucknell, I think.
Bucknell, yes.
Yeah,
if I'm going
he
correct.
set the school record for like blocks last night, which was like 172. It was just so funny because Jarvis Bernardo set the NCAA record and it's like 540. So he averaged like 170 something a year.
And this is
And
coming
so-
from the Mississippi
Oh
State.
no! When I saw it, I just was sitting there going, "Wow, that's crazy!" Because you don't realize how dominant he was.
Oh yeah.
And those numbers, and so it was just kind of funny to me because I was sitting there going, because I remember him having like 170, and he averaged that in the last 3 years, and so it was just kind of
Who
funny.
does he play with now?
He went with the Heat. I think he's overseas.
Oh, okay.
He never made the squad when they did the whole deal.
He didn't get signed, but Jorts got signed to a deal up in New York.
Bernardo is one of those guys that I think he
He's
needs
got
a
that
lot of
niche.
development. Yeah.
He's good with
He's
that.
also
stuff.
a weird size.
Yeah, he's not like a 7-footer. He's like 6'9", but he's got like a 7'3" wingspan, and had unbelievable timing, that type of stuff. He wasn't big, so
Yeah,
he
he's-
wasn't physical. So he was in one of those deals. He was kind of those
Needs
tweeners
some-
where he had to be able to take somebody off the dribble at a 4 or post up as a 5, and he couldn't do either one of those. So
And we'll keep going on.
Yeah,
Next up in
sorry to get off
that's
that.
all right. Next up in the rankings is Auburn, and they're only there just because they haven't. We talked about this pre-show. They've only got 26 games scheduled this year, 5 less than some of the other teams in the SEC. But they're 6-1. I think they're going to come back to reality. They just haven't played a lot of games, so they don't have the opportunity to have the losses. And then we're talking Mississippi. Well, we'll give Mississippi State their due. They're leading the SEC right now, but
Yeah.
Kentucky's second in the
It does
SEC.
like hear that ending.
Yeah, it pains me I have to do Kentucky before Mississippi State. But UK had that tough loss last week against Indiana.
They handled Chattanooga last night.
They did handle Chattanooga. they did have an apology given to them this week from I think it was the AD at IU, for their fans. You know, as a Kentucky fan, they stormed the football field, but nobody got trampled or injured. But you know, there were some injuries and some people that weren't treated real well as Kentucky fans up at the Indiana game last week. So
Shocker.
those Indiana fans just don't know how to handle a win. At least that's one thing Kentucky basketball has taught Kentucky fans, is at least we know how to win.
Or the SEC. I mean, that's what's so crazy is that rule that they placed in. I mean, you get,
Storming the field.
$25,000, you know, and then I think you get a warning, and then 25,000, then 50,000. So it's just funny when you go look around the country. There's never an SEC team that rushes the field in football or basketball. Just won't happen.
We were talking about this earlier. You know, after College of Charleston beat Tennessee this week, they stormed the court, and I'm like, wait, Tennessee is the worst team in the SEC. So.
Yeah. But I think Kentucky. I mean, obviously they hadn't played since that game until last night. But you know, I mean, my goodness, they're what 10-1, 9-1.
Yeah, 9-1.
So I mean, they're the real deal.
They are. I mean, if you looked at the Naismith preseason, you know, they had I think 3 or 4 players on the watch list, and those same players are the ones that you see, you know, leading. Davis is 3rd nationally in blocks per game, number 2 in total blocks.
Did you watch the game last night by chance?
I watched the second half.
It
took me forever to find it because I was looking at my HD channels and blasted Comcast. They're the worst. There was no CSS HD channel for the Kentucky game, so I had to go. Finally, I just looked on the regular channels and I found it.
Nice.
In the second half.
Well, I was just wondering about Terrence Jones. How did everything go with him? You know, 'cause
he got hurt.
Well, last night.
He dislocated a finger last night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know, he they basically set him down at the end of that Indiana game, and a little bit of an attitude issue and that type of stuff. I didn't know, never really heard anything else about it. But
I don't have the stats in front of me, but he came back. He was looking okay, but he got a dislocated finger. Had to come out for a while.
okay.
So we'll see what that ends up doing for him. But Lamb, you know, I think he's the one that's going to be key to everything. He's going to be the one that leads the Kentucky. You're going to see Kentucky win or lose based on how well he can control it.
Yeah, he's kind of been aggressive towards late into the games when they've had a close game, I guess you could say. But.
Yeah, and there again it goes point guard play. You know, you're starting to see him come in, take control of that team, and they're following his direction.
Who's the guard that's I forget his name, the freshman guard? Sorry.
Kid Gilchrist?
No, he's the wing player that's just ridiculous, by the way. He can stroke it from. As they could say.
You talking about Wiltshire?
No, Teague. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, Teague is. He's the one that I think you're going to have to see like late January, getting into February, how he develops, and see if he can take a little bit of that pressure off of Lamb having to go get the ball and do that type of stuff. He needs to kind of. Because it's evolved in every John Calipari point guard that he's gotten. They've kind of evolved into that area, and so that's kind of what we talked about this year. Is there going to be a year where that doesn't really develop?
Yeah, look at his last 5, even back to the Memphis days. Point guards.
Yeah.
I think all of them are in the NBA right now.
Tyreek Evans, Derrick Rose.
Yeah,
John Wall.
He's got a long line of them.
There's more.
Yeah.
So the one Brandon Knight last year.
Yeah.
Who I thought was going to be the first one to kind of, because I didn't think that he was as big of an offensive. He wasn't the John Wall. He wasn't the kid that was going to take the rebound and go faster than anybody down the court and put so much pressure on you. But he ended up being just an absolute stud.
Yeah. So Kentucky's exactly who we think they are. The number 3 ranking right now, they could easily be number 1 come sometime in January.
Yeah. They play Louisville New Year's Eve, right?
Yeah.
Good news for Kentucky fans is it's going to be at Rupp Arena.
Okay.
So it's not. I would really be worried about that being a loss if it was.
That's going to be a good game.
It's going to be a good game
it's
regardless.
Top 5 teams.
Yeah, but
do y'all play between now and then?
Yeah, they have 3 games between them.
They're nobody teams.
Stanford, I guess it's.
Oh, yeah, that's like 3 weeks. It's like 2.5 weeks away. So.
Yeah. but I think they're all like,
Terrible.
yeah, they're all
Yeah.
nobody teams. I won't say nobody, but they're not
Loyola and
not a heavily ranked or
Okay.
favored opponent. So
That's good.
we'll be favored by 25 or so, I would think, for all of those.
Okay.
So
Sanford, Loyola, and Lamar.
there we go.
Nice. Well, I will be sitting in the in-laws' house with the CARDS cards. Is it cats?
Yes.
And it's just cards, right? It's like the dumbest cheers I ever heard in my life.
I don't know.
Anyway, it's
Hell yes.
it's the
That's
CARDS cards. That's what it is.
Is that what it is?
Sorry for you people out there that don't know what's happening, but anyway, my
and-
wife is gonna ridicule me.
Now she's not going to listen, so
And then Louisville plays Georgetown right before they play Kentucky.
we got that going for us, which is nice.
Might get beat up.
Tell you what, man, they got Buckles back, and that big Ding kid is like the longest guy on earth. Did you see that guy?
He is.
Man, he is long.
And it's so weird. I don't really think that they thought they were going to get that from him. He's new to basketball, pretty new.
Yeah.
Maybe played
He's also a
basketball
kid
lot,
that set out because he had something wrong with his academics transcript, but he made a 36 on his ACT and speaks 5 languages. But yeah, he didn't take the correct classes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, come on, NCAA. I mean,
It's
please.
ridiculous.
Anyway, that's just another bone I got to pick anyway.
They're
A little off topic.
you never know what the NCAA thinks. I mean, if it comes to a coach, they're going to get their way. But if it's a player, throw the book at them. That's a whole other soapbox that I don't need to get on.
That's right.
But now we're saving the number one team right now currently in the SEC, because remember, they rank them 1 through 12. There's no East-West anymore, so Mississippi State, number one.
We're holding down the number 1 spot with the coach that was the only one vote for not going to divisions. To stay in divisions. He was the 1 to 11 coaches vote.
Well, for Mississippi State, what works out best for them is they get the best of both scenarios, really. Because this year, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but do they still not play the East and West as far as the schedules? Like Mississippi State still has to play each West team twice,
Right.
and the East opponents once.
Right.
Where next year, once the Missouri and A&M
they'll
get
have
in
to go
here,
back to divisions.
it's going to get changed somewhat again.
Yeah.
So.
And if the word is they're going to have to go back to divisions, it's the only way they can actually
Can make
do
it
it.
work.
Yeah.
So they might get the best of both
Yeah.
worlds this year,
Yeah.
because they're going to be ranked higher than they would have been in the West. It's
Yeah.
going to help their seeding both in the SEC championship tournament as well as the NCAA tournament. But yet they're going to have the West, which is going to be a weaker side than the East.
Yeah. I tell you what, man, I'm really impressed with this team. If y'all had listened to me 3 weeks ago, whenever we took our loss to Akron, I was pretty hard on them because it was kind of the same old story. Stansbury gets out coached by LeBron's high school coach, and they lose in the hump with no desire whatsoever. But they've reeled off 10 straight. They're 11-1. They really pulled out one yesterday that was, at Detroit, which is always a tough place to play. So, I mean, it's just one of those things. This team has a little bit of moxie. And unlike some of the teams that we thought they were struggling, I think the one thing that I like about Mississippi State is that they do have that guy that can basically take over the game, and that's D. Boston. And yesterday, little freshman point guards throwing little mistakes, 4 minutes to go, and D. Boston got the ball and basically told him go to the 2 and let me run the offense. And so you have that ability, and then you also have Moultrie, who's the big kid who's late in game scenarios is doing well. But the more intriguing thing that's actually happened, you got those 2 guys that are seniors that kind of dominate everything. But the one guy that's making this team go is Rodney Hood, who is a 6'8" freshman, true freshman. And he is a little lefty. In the last 2 games, he has basically the game 2 nights ago. He scored. He actually scored the 2 buckets in the last 2 minutes to kind of seal that game. And then against Detroit, he's the one that actually takes a shot. 17 seconds left, buries a bucket. It wasn't having a good game at all, but he is just one of those kids that here you got 2 stud seniors that normally kind of take over late game scenarios, and he's been the one that's kind of been the guy to take over. So I'm really impressed. I mean, we'll see how good they are next. I guess the 28th they play Baylor in Dallas. Baylor's undefeated. Obviously and they have 2 stud guys, and But what I like is that we got two big post players, and I think when we play Kentucky, it's going to be a good matchup because I think we got two guys
That's
that
at
can
state
beat.
this year too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and so I'm looking forward to it. But what I like is that they got a little bit of grit. If y'all have seen, if we would have had a 15-point lead against Detroit at Detroit last year, we would have crumbled whenever that lead disappeared, and we didn't yesterday. So I think we got some good stuff going.
Yeah, I think you really have the opportunity to compete for the West. It's really going to come down to.
Yeah, it's going to come down to us and Alabama,
But
we'll see.
when it's all said and done, that's the way Vanderbilt's playing right now, that might be number 2 or 3 in the overall.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I mean, once we take care of Kentucky, we might actually have the number 1 spot and just take it on.
Be hard pressed to hold that one. Well, let's switch gears again and go back to football. What do you think?
All right.
It's that time of the podcast. We've taken a week or two break from this only because there's not been any real football games to do any of our picks for. But we do our picks every week against the spread, and give our thoughts on that. And we are also going to do this. I'm trying to do 3 things at once, so I apologize. What we are going to try to do is come basketball season, once we get into January and all the football's over, we're going to start into SEC play. We're also going to start doing our picks there on basketball inside the SEC only. But we'll take a look at those things and give our picks for the games. And we're going to kind of go in reverse order. And let me get a pen so I usually have Drew here to help me out, so I'm going to do double duty with the picks as well as the game itself. So the first matchup is going to be, well, here, I got what I was looking for. Kind of give everyone a breakdown of where we stand as well. Through the regular season, these are the regular season standings. Brett Young and Shane Bailey are both tied at 58, 29, and 2 against the spread. Followed up next would be Blair Smiley, our co-host here, 55, 32, and 2. Then we're going to have Chad Caldwell at 49, 38, and 2. Mark Wisner, 47, 40, and 2. And then we're just not going to worry about the rest. So Drew and Trent struggle right there at 500 or sub 500. But, looking at some of those records, if you were someone that partakes of gambling, we did all right as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, if you would have asked me at the beginning of the year if we knew what we were talking about, I'd said, it's still up for grabs. But it turns out we really do. So let's get on to our picks for the bowl games. We're going to include Miss Missouri and A&M in our picks this week, only because we're done with the regular season. We're going to welcome 2 new teams in the SEC, and what better way to do that than start them off in our bowl picks. So what we're going to do is look at the games, give our picks, and Blair, I'm going to let you kick off so John sees how we do this on the podcast. First one up is Missouri. They are playing North Carolina at the Independence Bowl, and they are 4.5-point favorites.
I tell you what, I haven't paid that much attention to Missouri and obviously North Carolina with their coaching change, but I know Missouri throws it around a little bit and with Pinkel and everything. So I'm actually going to go. If I'm not mistaken, Missouri's got James Franklin as their quarterback, if I remember that correctly. So that'll be one thing next year where we'll have a James Franklin versus a James Franklin. So, yeah, I think so. But I like Missouri in this one, 4.5. I think they'll cover that easily.
John?
I also like Missouri. I do. So I'm going to take them. And I'm 0-0, so.
There we go. Well, we do have a guest picker slot, and overall our guest pickers are 38, 24, and 1. So you've got to do well.
I hope to raise that up a little bit.
There we go. Blaine Gabbert, he plays for Missouri, right? He's
He
a
wishes he still played.
He definitely probably does.
Well, I do know that my research on Missouri is not where it needs to be as far as where they stand as far as quality, but I do know that they still know how to throw the ball, and North Carolina is a team that's on the rise. They were hard pressed to get some coaches over the last few years. I think they finally found somebody, and they're on their way up, but I don't think they're quite there yet. I like the 4.5 with Missouri as well. Next up, John, we're going to let you go first on this one. We have Texas A&M playing Northwestern at the, I love the names of these bowl games, Meineke Car Care Bowl in Texas. They are a 10-point favorite over Northwestern.
I like A&M. I mean, they had I don't know who's going to be coaching them in the bowl game. Do they know that yet?
I don't know.
It's going to be staff, I guess, one of the coordinators. I don't know how that works. They did fire their coach.
Yeah.
But I just think that, again, size and speed,
Yeah, one of their assistants is going to step up and be.
Probably doesn't really matter who it is, but
No.
I don't have that much faith. I mean, Northwestern's okay. I just think it's one of those conference things. I tend to, lean towards the people that play better competition, so I'm going to go with that A&M.
Well, if you look at that, you look at I'm going to take A&M too. I think they're high potent offense. I watched them play Arkansas in a couple games. I saw them play the Texas game this year, and they can put up a lot of points. One thing that they struggle with some is a little defense, and that's going to play well for Northwestern. So they're going to have an opportunity to score some. But you look at Northwestern, and they struggle in the Big Ten every year, and that's not a team. That's not a conference as a whole. That's just a scoring juggernaut. So with that being said, and you've got a 10-point spread, that Vegas thinks there's going to be some points being scored, and if there's points going to be scored in that game, it's going to have to go to A&M. So I'm taking A&M as well.
I think so too. I'm going to lean directly with you guys. A&M, I think they'll cover that. I don't know much about Northwestern, but I think Texas A&M, I know they've lost leads in the second half, but I think this is maybe a chance for them to kind of start anew, and with the kind of the new way that they're actually moving, this might be kind of a start off for them.
Yeah, I'm going to kick us off for the next game, and now we're into the heart of the SEC. This game is going to be played the 30th. 30th is Vanderbilt.
That's the 31st.
31st.
Mississippi State.
All right then, that works. I'm going to let Blair kick off that game. That worked out perfect. All right, so Vandy is back to that again. Vandy is playing Cincinnati. They're 2.5-point favorites in the Liberty Bowl, which is going to be the 31st, which is Saturday.
Yeah.
It's an afternoon game. Is that right? 3 o'clock
so.
or somewhere around there. I don't have the time.
I think it's 6.
If I
it
just
says 6:40, but
all I got to do is just click to my other screen that I have all the bowl games pulled up. How silly of me! It's a 3:30 Eastern start time. So the Vanderbilt Commodores, the new West End machine, 2.5 points is not enough. I think they're easily a touchdown favorite over Cincinnati. Cincinnati can score points. That's the one thing that Cincinnati has going for them. But this Vanderbilt defense is a different defense than you've seen from a Vanderbilt program. You couple that with a Vanderbilt program that's learning how to score points under Rodgers. They're not afraid to do some things. I think they're going to have a lot of tricks up their sleeve come this game. They're going to want to try to, just like they did the previous bowl game under Bobby Johnson, was that 2 years ago that they went to a bowl game? They did a lot of trick plays and a lot of different looks and variations. And I see the same thing from Franklin on this. I think he really wants to come out. He's going to do everything he can to try to win this game to really catapult the Vanderbilt program. 2.5 points is not enough. So Vandy.
I'm right there with you. I actually will piggyback on what you said and catapult into 2012. I think this is what James Franklin's going to use this game for. I think they're going to have a rested defense, a little time off. Everybody's kind of going to be nice and fresh, and I think they're actually going to create an offensive game plan to kind of, I think this is their selling point. They have actually started a great recruiting class, and those people actually recruited to them when they didn't really know what the expectation was going to be out there.
Yeah, they didn't know what they were in for.
And he lived up to the end of his deal, and I think this is another showcase that says, hey, we're gonna move the ball, and I think that defense is going to stiffen up, and I see this as a 10+ point ball game. I think Vandy's going to use this. I think since he's rolling into kind of a buzzsaw here.
Let me stop real quick here. I think you're back to that recruiting point. I think you're really spot on there. I mean, when he was in those, and I don't know where they stand. The last time I looked at some recruiting news, and that's just not where my heart lies. I just can't delve into where all those high school players are. And where they ranked, but last I saw, they were a top 26 in the country, and
Yeah, they haven't actually updated rankings recently, but they ESPN, they've been in the top 25. I think they have actually, if I'm not mistaken, they have recruited, I think, 1 4-star in the recent 15-year history, and I think he's got 4, if I'm not mistaken, that have already, and the 4-star is different here and there, so the recruiting rankings are all, skewed a little bit, but he's definitely rolling and fighting in state and going into Georgia.
But my point with that is, all those players that he was setting in their living room, you've got the benefit of a program
Right.
that's established, and you know what you're getting, but he was selling a dream.
Yeah.
He was trying to get people to buy into this dream. This is what we can be if you're on board with us. And all those individuals were on board, and now it's coming to fruition quickly. I mean, much quicker than most people would have thought. To take Vanderbilt to be a 6-6 program, new facilities, new contract, everything Vanderbilt got this year. I think I just don't like seeing that from a Kentucky standpoint. But props to Vandy. Anyways, go on, John. Sorry.
I mean, I don't know, call me a hater or whatnot. I don't really particularly care for James Franklin. I think,
Hater.
he does a good job selling the program. I don't foresee him staying too long. When you look at their games, they have big games against, they had Georgia at home. They have no Vandy fan support. If he starts winning here, which I still doubt that he's ever going to get over 7 wins here, strongly doubt. I just don't see how he's going to stay. If they're not going to put people in the stadium, they have 40,000, something like that, a little bit over 40,000. I just don't see why he would stay here. Somebody's going to come along and say, okay, you've had success in the SEC. We'll give you a job where at least we can put 50, 60,000 people in the stands, and
I think you're exactly right on the fan deal. I think what we actually need to see is from now on, and I think that they actually came out and said that because I think from a fan standpoint from Vanderbilt, if I was a fan of Vanderbilt, 25 years makes me pretty skeptical of saying, okay, well, I'll give him a year, let's see what actually happens. I would have been the kind of guy that would have gone to a game at the end of the year when I saw that they were playing well. But I think what actually is going to happen is that the Vandy administration just put the stamp on, hey, we're giving some money for some facilities. James Franklin has actually kind of sold that. And so I think they've got almost 10,000 sold through their ticket office. So I think they're going to put 20,000+ people in the stands for Liberty Bowl. We got to see. But I think this is the launching pad. I think if you're here next year doing the same thing and they're not selling out 40,000 and they're got a chance to go to the ball game, they got issues.
Yeah, Franklin threw out another challenge to the Vanderbilt hopeful and fans this week. I mean, they sold their allotment pretty quick, really, and threw that challenge out there. And one thing we're forgetting is we don't know how much he's actually getting. Vanderbilt University is a private university, so they don't disclose how much their coaches get paid. But I have a feeling that they came to the table this time. If they're coming out and they're willing to throw the money they are into facility upgrades, in an indoor facility, and all the things that they're promising publicly that they've actually put on paper that are going to have to finally happen down on West End in Nashville, that you're going to see that's going to change. And
now,
you can hate all you want, but
I mean, it's not.
I think he's there for a little while.
I don't hate them because they're not, to me, Vanderbilt. I don't look at them as like main competition really for the team that I like. I just don't. New facilities, you're always going to have the Vanderbilt. They're going to have to recruit a certain type of player.
Right.
They're not going to. It's like Notre Dame. That's why Notre Dame kind of went downhill. They had to recruit a certain type of player.
Yeah, that's really worked bad for Stanford, hasn't it?
Well, I mean, the thing about Stanford is too. I just don't think that they play in the strongest division. I mean, again, people are going to say, "Oh, hater," but to me, the Pac-10 or 12 or whatever it is, I'm not a big. I don't know.
Well, the thing is, you got to have a different plan. You got to have a little bit of a different deal, but you also got to understand that we're also not playing in 15 years ago. Yeah. And I think 15 years ago, a kid would have gone to an Alabama, a Tennessee, or a place there and actually sat for 2 years and worked his way up. Whereas today, frankly, what happened is James Franklin went in the living room and says, "You can go over there, but I'm giving you an opportunity to do something that's never been done." And today's kids have too much exposure. There's too much opportunity. They want to actually get in play. So that's where I think he's actually making a little bit of a headway from that standpoint.
15 years ago, you didn't have a program like Vanderbilt that was going to be on TV every Saturday but one, and that's pay-per-view, and that's the contract with the SEC. They're on, 11 of their 12 games are going to be on TV in some way, shape, or form that you can get for free.
And he's got to go to the kid that can qualify,
Yeah.
and he's got to go a little bit of a different route. But I think the other thing that James Franklin has is that Vanderbilt also went out on a limb and gave him his first head coaching job. Whenever you have that scenario, I mean, it's a little bit different than maybe saying that he's a Todd Graham and he's going to just jump from job to job. I think he's going to be there for a couple of years at least, but I'm anxious to see what he does. I think it's going to be difficult to win there. I'm right there with you. But the East is as wide open as it's ever been. And
if he can start doing those things and cementing a future there where Vanderbilt has some winning and some fan support, and we've talked about on podcasts a number of times the issues that he faces at Vanderbilt with fan support. I mean, the individuals that live in Nashville, most of them didn't go to Vanderbilt. They came from another university. I mean, they came from UT or Mississippi State or not so much UK. We just are UK fans. But Auburn, Alabama, all those individuals come up here, so they have an allegiance to another program. They're not going to just say, "Oh, I grew up in Alabama. I went to Alabama. I live in Nashville now, so I'm going to be a Vanderbilt fan."
I think one other thing that he has going for him too is you got to look at the general economy. I think people are a little bit more concerned with, that degree means something to them.
Right.
And he might get the kids that are like, well, if they're really thinking about the way things are, hey, I can use this Vandy degree. I might not be the best player, but I can use that degree to springboard into.
Well, I think you actually see some of the better players are doing that's just like Mike Krzyzewski at Duke. I mean, he's going after the greatest talent, but he also understands that there's certain kids he can't recruit because it's just a waste of time. I think James Franklin has. I think he just has a plan that, hey, I'm gonna have to narrow my pool down, but I'm gonna have to go find that.
But I'm
kid.
gonna be successful in that pool.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to work harder, and I've got to get the kids. And to be honest with you, I think Vanderbilt is open to allowing some exceptions in the door that they may have never allowed 10 or 15 years ago.
How much does it cost to go to Tennessee?
Per year?
Yeah.
Well, now it's probably a lot more. I would guess between 6,000 and 8,000.
All right, it's 30,000 plus.
39, yeah.
I mean, at
With
Vanderbilt.
140.
So you're talking. I mean, you could do a 4-year education almost for what you do for 1 year at Vanderbilt. So with that being said, it's an easy conversation if you're James Franklin and you have a qualified pool of applicants, basically that are
That education is a high priority.
or at least smart enough to make it in. That it might not be, because it might not be important to them, but it's important to mom and dad.
Right.
And you go in and you say, I'm giving your son a $40,000 a year education at a university that's top 15, top 20 in the country in academics to play on the biggest stage in college football, the SEC. It's an easy sell. I mean, if I were that kid's parents, it's like, okay.
Yeah, well, it's an easier sell if you have the facilities that actually allow you to do those things.
Exactly.
I think that's the biggest key that he actually, if they struck that $8 million check and get some type of practice facility, those types of things. I mean, they've got nice stuff, but you're also competing with a lot of people.
The flip side of that, though, is that you have, let's say a kid is, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, going after a kid that Vandy wants. Then you flip on the TV, this is how many people we have in our stands, and then this is how many Vandy puts in.
Yeah, but I think
a bad day, Tennessee puts.
Well, I think you're gonna lose more than you win. But the whole idea is that the pool that you're actually seeking is going to be a little bit of a different kid that actually turns on the TV on Saturday and sees those and goes, "Oh, I can go there." I think it's all about the pool that he's actually doing.
But you've also got the same, your objection there. I mean, going back to sales techniques, if you want to start talking about that, your objection to easily overcome that. If you're sitting in that student's house is, yes, it would be a thrill to go to Alabama and run out in front of 100,000 screaming fans, but you're going to be sitting the bench for 2 years.
Yeah.
You can come to Vanderbilt. We're getting 40,000 fans. We're going to be excited to have you here, and you're going to play.
Or how cool it is to go into that 100,000 stadium and actually
beat
win.
them.
But are you going to win with players are you the best players go to these schools and 5-star, 4-star, and a lot of them do get playing time their freshman year. Now some do sit. I do understand.
Well, I don't
that.
think they're. I
My
don't think
problem
you're
is
gonna.
that can you win?
Yeah,
I mean,
but-
I'm not saying that Tennessee's recruiting the greatest class ever, but are you going to win with 3-star players?
But let's
at
face it,
Vanderbilt?
most of those individuals you're talking about won't qualify
Right.
for Vanderbilt.
Right. I mean, the thing about it is that you're not. There's only so many 5-stars out there. So there's.
And,
There's-
and,
And
and
4-star, just good. And I mean, they did get Jelks, and he's an O-lineman. You're going to have
but,
some
but
players that will be able to get and qualify. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that there's a 5-star.
I think-
a 5-star is better than a 3-star. That doesn't matter to me because I think that there's the way the rating systems go too are affected by who they have an offer from.
I think it's all about evaluation because we can get off on recruiting, which would be a whole nother deal, and rankings and stuff. But rankings aren't the end all be all. And I can tell you, I mean, Mississippi State went 9-4 last year, and they're somewhere between 30 and 40th every year in recruiting.
Yeah.
And it's because a kid, when you get just in Mississippi, because that's going to be the dominant state that they recruit in,
Yeah.
you get past the top 15 players in the state of Mississippi, there aren't an Alabama, Auburn, a Tennessee, a Georgia, a Florida recruiting them. Automatically, their stars aren't going to be hired. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So when a
Doesn't mean they might not
two-star
be.
kid,
I agree
yeah,
with you. I agree
a
with
two-star kid in California, his junior year gets offered by USC, Oregon, and Stanford. All of a sudden, he becomes a 4-star. So there's a little bit of both of those things. I don't think that you're going to see Vanderbilt ever all of a sudden coming in with a top 10 class. But I do think that, hey, could they actually get a top 25 class once every 5 years? And can you win with the 3 stars? Yeah. I mean, you can win. I think you can win because I think that Dan Mullen can win at Mississippi State, and he's doing it with a lesser athlete, supposedly, through the recruiting rankings. But he's also redshirted 19 last year and 18 this year. So when you start doing that type of stuff, that's the only shot they got to win. Because they're not going to go and get 10 5-stars. They're not competing with USC that can
But
take.
it's like you said, that if he's trying to sell, if Franklin's trying to sell playing time, and I don't want to talk about this because like you said,
Well, I don't think. Well, first of all, I don't think Vanderbilt's going to go out and say, "Hey, we're going to win 9 ball games every year." That's unrealistic. But I think that Vanderbilt can be a 6-6 to 8-win team or a 5 to 8-win team consistently, because the difference between a 5-win team and an 8-win team in the SEC is very, very thin. Now,
it's a
once
couple
every
field
yeah,
goals.
but maybe they line it up to once every 5 years. They have a shot to maybe win 8 ball games or 9 ball games and get to that level, and they're going to fall back. I mean, there's no way to keep it consistently from that standpoint. But I think they got a shot and scheduled correctly, like Kentucky has done, and able to actually get those. Not taking a shot at you, but
Kentucky schedules to try to make a bowl game.
right,
That's
exactly.
the only way. They don't schedule to improve. They get 4 teams that they should be able to beat. Well, 3. They've got Louisville regardless, and Louisville can be up or down.
We got off on that. That's all right.
But they
Did
can
you
get,
make a pick?
no. Let's bring this
Sorry,
around.
I'll go ahead.
With all that Vanderbilt
What's the
bashing, you
spread again?
can't take Vanderbilt now.
What is the spread?
Vanderbilt is giving 2.5.
Well, then, yeah, I guess I really can't. The only thing, the only reason I'm even leaning towards them is just because it is in Memphis, and I did read that thing about how they're gonna have probably about 15,000 people when it's all said and done. But Cincinnati was hot at the end of the season. I'm gonna go ahead and take Cincinnati then.
Well, I'll tell you, don't ever look at the allotment on how many fans they actually have, because
Yeah.
Mississippi State sold out their allotment. But when you go through the school, you're in certain sections. Liberty Bowl, you can call directly there. You get better seating than even the school allotment. So they're probably going to have more than that amount that actually show up.
That's the thing.
I'm expecting a pretty decent crowd for them.
Even 20,000. I mean, I just.
Yeah.
Like I said, yeah, it's hard for me to bash. But, I mean, I'm not going to give them, they did play well. I just think that Cincinnati was on a roll towards the end of the season.
Well, the good thing is
So
it'll all work out, and we'll know
Yeah.
pretty soon.
Yeah, Cincy's no cupcake. They're 9-3. I mean,
And they have played SEC before. They did. I mean, they got beat by Tennessee. I'm not saying this is the best competition, but they might. I'll take Cincinnati. We'll just leave it at that.
all right. Next, we're going to let you lead off again. We have the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, the Urban Meyer Bowl. We'll say.
You let me take it off, or John?
Oh, we missed. We got
did
some.
Mississippi State, yeah.
We didn't even go to Mississippi State. Yeah, let's backtrack there. We're going to go the Franklin American Music City Bowl. Mississippi State is giving 7 against Wake Forest.
I'm taking Mississippi State, of course. I actually, I'm looking forward to this. I think this is a good slot for State. They've been 4-1 in the last 5 bowls. Mullen obviously prepared us for probably the best game we played last year when we went to a bowl game, so he has a nice schedule. So I'm looking forward to it. I think we're going to be able to run the ball on Wake Forest. I think Wake Forest actually is a little more pass happy than they've been in the past. They normally are kind of more of a run oriented team, but I'm looking forward to it. I think we're gonna win easily. That's just me.
John?
I'm gonna go with State also. I just think didn't Wake Forest lose to Vandy last game, so
Yeah. Bad.
there you
go. I'm noticing these picks are leaning heavily to the SEC, and I said this last week, and the lines did only three lines moved since we looked at the numbers last week, and they didn't move any more than a half a point either way. But of the what we have 11 teams, the SEC counting Missouri and A&M, that made a bowl game. The SEC is favored in 9 of them, and we are a pick 'em in the other 2, and that's LSU, Alabama. So we're favored basically. We're not favored to lose in any of them, in any single bowl game. So that just shows the strength of the SEC, and I think we have a little SEC bias here because I'm going to go State as well.
But it's going to change down here a little bit.
But with Wake Forest, though, I mean, you really have a team that kind of backslided in. I mean, they struggled the last month in November. You know, in the NFL, you say, how well did you do in December?
Yeah.
You know, generally relates you well. Same thing here in the college ranks, playing well in November, and that's something I don't think they did well. So
yeah, they actually are a pretty young team, so they had a hard time finishing some games. I mean, they won against Florida State, and that was a big upset at the time, and it basically gave the game away for Clemson to play in the ACC championship game. So, I think they have the ability to put together a nice deal. But I just think State's defense is going to be pretty tough to deal with.
all right, John, we're going to let you kick off again. Now we're at the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, or the Meyer Bowl, with this Florida versus Ohio State, and Florida is favored by 2.
Well, I guess I'm going to go ahead and take Ohio State. I don't know, Florida's just been so up and down this year, and 2 coaching staffs are always better than 1, so I'm going to take Ohio State. It's kind of like I said last week. I know it's not, they can say whatever is whatever. Don't tell me that Urban Meyer is not going to tell them exactly what player does what. That's, come on.
This one is one that, there's a couple on here that scare me, and this one scares me a little bit, only because Florida struggled so hard to score a point against Florida State the last game of the year, and that's where they struggled, and I'm going to change it up, and I'm going to say I'm going to take Florida, and I'm going to think that they're going to piece together a crazy offense with Charlie Gong. They're going to come up with some crazy stuff. Brantley's had time to get healthy. That's been a big issue for them. They started out the season pretty good, and then Brantley got hurt. So they've got time to heal. And with those things coming in, I think they're going to come in with a different feel than they played in November. And I'm going to take Florida.
Well, Shane, before you actually spoke, I was leaning towards Ohio State, and you have swung me to Florida with your breakdown there. I agree with you on the Brantley deal. The reason that I was leaning towards Ohio State was the better quarterback and the young kid for Ohio State, who I think is going to be really good. But I do think Brantley getting a month off to kind of heal up, and then also their 2 speedsters having a chance to kind of freshen up, and I think their defense as well. And it's being played in Florida, so I think Muschamp is knowing that this Urban Meyer is going to be kind of involved in this one way or another. And I'm going to lean towards Florida as well, covering the 2.
Now that's the Gator Bowl. That's in Orlando, right? Or
No, that is actually Jacksonville.
Jacksonville. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a little further away than from Gainesville.
Yeah, and so
it's a huge game.
it's a huge game. Yeah, it's a Tebow's hometown too, from that standpoint. But I think Florida. I think the over/under ought to be how many times Urban Meyer's name is going to be mentioned in the broadcast.
Yeah, again, I want to see him dot the I. All right, next we have Auburn is giving 2 against Virginia in the Chick-fil-A Bowl in Atlanta. It's my turn to kick off, right? Yeah,
Is this one of your scary ones?
It's the other one I'm scared about. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with the SEC, only because I don't know a whole lot about Virginia. Auburn, we've talked about their slide and how they've won games at the beginning of the season that they probably really didn't deserve to win and probably don't deserve to be here. They've got coordinator issues left and right. They've got every reason in the world that they shouldn't win this game. What keeps me on Auburn is, we've had a week to look at this, and the line didn't move. All three of the games that we talked about, there was a half-point movement. Didn't have issues with coaches or any news this week that caused it. It was just money going the other way. So Vegas doesn't seem to think that losing an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator and a star-stud running back is going to be an issue. Michael Dyer, we didn't even talk about that. He's not going to be eligible for this game, and that still didn't even move this line. So that tells me either Vegas has a lot of belief in Auburn and their system, or they don't believe in Virginia. And so with either way, I'm going to have to take Auburn.
I was leaning one way, and then you started speaking.
I'm persuasive, aren't I?
And I chose to go to Virginia.
I told you all the reasons why you shouldn't do Auburn.
I like Virginia in this for some reason. Auburn's got everything set up to be, hey, they got the world against them, and Chiswick's going to come out and beat his chest and flex and do his little pointed jowl and all that kind of stuff and grit his teeth. And I think they'll come out kind of emotional, but I think losing Dyer is a big deal. I think losing the two coordinators. I think if you lose one, you're okay, but I think both of them together is going to be a little bit of a difficult deal. And Virginia, Virginia had a shot at home against Virginia Tech to go to the ACC championship and got blown out. And so I think a little bad taste in their mouth. I think it's a chance for them to kind of redeem their season. That they had a very successful season. They won 8 ball games, if I'm not mistaken.
8-4.
I like Virginia in this one, and a very close ball game.
I like Virginia. I liked them before you guys even started talking about it, but I just think that you lose your D coordinator, your O coordinator. Who's going to be coaching? Is your tight ends coach going to be calling the plays? I'm sure Chiswick probably will, but. Virginia.
Okay. Let's see. The next game on the list is South Carolina, 2.5-point favorites over Nebraska in the Capital One Bowl. Blair?
I'll take it off. I'm going to go South Carolina in this one, and I'm going to actually go. I think 2.5 is pretty small in this one. I think their defense is going to really disrupt Nebraska. I think the little bitty quarterback for Nebraska is going to be scared for his life, the thing, the South Carolina is one of those risk-reward defenses again, so you can kind of gash them a little bit. They're going to give up a couple of big plays, but I think they actually will make a lot of plays. And I think Connor Shaw, again, like we talked about, Spurrier kind of figured out that he's going to have to run the ball a little bit more with his quarterback and not sit back and throw it around. So I like the ability with Shaw feeling good, kind of a month off. I give Spurrier the nod.
I like South Carolina. I was thinking 35-3. I think it's going to be a huge blowout. I don't think it's going to be close. It's like you said, Taylor Martinez. He couldn't get it done in the Big Ten. No way he gets it done against that defense. They're going to destroy him.
I'm going to take South Carolina as well, but the interesting things about this to me is that I'm hearing something in the background. I guess I got some speakers on. Sorry. If you look at Nebraska's schedule this last year, they did have one really big quality win. They beat Michigan State, who was ranked 11th, 24-3. But then they did turn around and lose, and Penn State, 17-14. But then they lost to Michigan, they got blown out, 45-17 there. They also got blown out against Wisconsin. So you start talking about programs that have great quality offenses they struggled against. Penn State doesn't have a great offense. We saw that when they played Alabama. Michigan State did have a pretty good offense, but with that being said, it looks like they're going to struggle to put up points against a team that can A, have a good defense, and B, have the effective offense, which South Carolina seemed to find towards the end. Like you said, once Spurrier gave in and let Shaw run an offense that he was comfortable in, being able to hold the ball and turn it in and run it, pass the ball when he needed to, they were able to effectively put some points on the board. And so I do see this going much higher than a 2.5-point game. So, John, Georgia 3.5 against Michigan State, back-to-back Big Tens.
Well, it's pretty much like I said about Georgia the last 2 weeks. I just don't believe in Mark Richt. I just think that, I think Georgia on paper probably has more talent. I just think, I think this comes down to coaching, and I like Michigan State.
I'm going to take Georgia. I think I'm going all SEC. I'm going to have trouble figuring that out at the end when we get to 2 SEC teams. But, we just talked about Michigan State. We're looking at right now the 17th ranked team in the country versus the 16th team in the country. Their only loss outside they lost 2 out of conference games, didn't they? They lost Wisconsin, Nebraska, and Notre Dame. Other than that, they've got some really, really impressive wins. They've got the ability to throw some huge points on the board. Throwing up against Indiana, they threw up 55 against. But Georgia, they've got another month to prepare. Unlike you, I like Rick. I think he's done an amazing job there. I don't think he should have lost the South Carolina game the way he did. But I can't fault him for losing the Boise State game. But they've got that program in the right direction, and I don't have anything else to say. But I want to take Georgia by 3. They're going to cover that 3.5.
I'm actually going to take Michigan State, and the reason for it, I think it's going to be a relatively close ball game because I think they both got good offenses. I think they both got pretty good defenses. I know Georgia is ranked pretty high, but I know that Michigan State's got a good defense as well. But if you remember last year, Michigan State was left out of the BCS. They went down to Alabama, and Alabama blew the doors off of them, like 31-0.
Yeah.
And I think this is an opportunity. They got a great quarterback. I think this is a good opportunity for them to come in and be prepared with a little bit more of an urgency because of what happened last year. I think they'll be a little bit more focused, and I like Michigan State, but I also like it in a 3-point ball game.
What you say reminds me of what Ohio State fans were saying the last couple of years, but because they would come in and the SEC would blow them out, and they talk about all the ways they learned from that and how they've had another year and they're a little bit better, and then the same scenario would happen the next year.
Yeah, but Georgia's not any Florida, and Georgia's not any of the other ones they play.
We'll see how it throws out. And the good news for the Outback Bowl's Tampa, is that right? Tampa. So it's a lot closer to Georgia than Michigan State. So you're going to see a lot of Georgia fans in the.
Oh, Michigan State. Those Big Ten people, they bring lots of people. They like to drink too.
And it's warm.
Yeah.
Excuse me, out of that cold. Whose turn is it to kick us off next?
I'll go ahead.
All right, Arkansas 7.5 over Kansas State in Jerry's place.
I like Arkansas. I think Arkansas is going to blow out Kansas State actually, and Kansas State has played well. They definitely have some good quality wins this year, but Arkansas's offense they're going to put up a ton of points, and Kansas State doesn't seem like a great defensive team. It's probably going to be high scoring. I'd probably look. I would feel probably comfortable over 60 points. So I'm gonna take Arkansas.
I'm just gonna pull up what the over/under is on that while I do a little talking.
I'm gonna guess like 65, 66 over.
Let's see. That game is what day is that game?
It's like
It's on the
6th or something.
63 is the over/under. So Vegas thinks there's gonna be a lot of points scored as well. I tend to agree with a lot of those things. What I'm also going to say, I'm going to take Arkansas. What I'm also going to say is that when they played LSU, they got knocked down on the floor. Well, if you remember, they came out strong and took a lead, and then all of a sudden, LSU was able to flip a switch and gain control of the momentum somewhere around midway through the second quarter, and were never looked back after that. The same thing happened against Georgia. LSU is just a different program than anybody else in the country. That's not going to happen to Arkansas twice. They're going to have a month to prepare. They got pretty banged up towards the end of the season as well, and they're going to be healed. and healthy, and you're going to see Arkansas come out and just start slinging the ball left and right. The over-under 63, and I think that Arkansas is going to be on the other side of that by 10. So
I'm going to go Arkansas as well. I don't know if y'all seen Kansas State play this year, but they got that all everything quarterback. He's a little bit undersized. He's as gutsy as can be, but he makes everything go for them. So I think Arkansas, unlike some of the other schools that have had coordinator changes, I don't think it's going to affect them as much. With Petrino obviously being the offensive guy, he just brings in his brother. I think the defensive. Did they actually settle on the defensive coordinator? It doesn't really matter because it's Arkansas, but I like Arkansas in this one. I think that they're going to get up. They played in Jerry's house twice this year.
It's a
three, yeah. I mean, so I think it's going to be a fun game, but I do think Arkansas pulls away, with a couple of touchdowns there at the end.
all right, that leaves the BCS National Championship game that's going to be Monday, January 9th. This is a pick'em game, Alabama and LSU. I'll lead us off here. I've went against LSU a couple times this season. It's crazy to do that. Every time I do, they prove me wrong, and I'm a believer. I always thought they were good, but I didn't think that they were as good as they are. And what scares me about that is that Alabama has played them once, so they know how each other's team is, and LSU is all about taking the momentum from the other team. And if they're able to do that, they did that with Georgia. I already talked about this. They did that with Arkansas, and were able to really control the game. I could see that happening with Alabama. If they were able to do a couple things all of a sudden and actually score a touchdown against Alabama. And Vegas agrees with me. The over-under is 40, and the combined score last time they played was what? Was it 9-6,
15.
right?
Yeah, 9-6. Yeah.
So 15. They feel like there's going to be some touchdowns and some points scored this time that didn't happen. And if that's the case, I think LSU can put more points on the board than Alabama.
I like LSU. I think it's going to be a little bit more high scoring than last time. The thing about LSU is, if I'm them, I'm going to dare them. I'm going to dare Alabama to throw the ball. I'm going to stop. I'm going to put 7-8 in the box, and you have two All-American corners on the outside. I mean, their defense is ridiculous. And I'm not saying that Alabama's not good, but they just haven't had a quarterback in the last 10 years that I've been anywhere close to being impressed with. I mean, It's like you said, they did open up against in the SEC championship a couple years ago against Florida, but I just don't see it. Obviously, you need to stop the running backs. I like LSU. I'm gonna just go say somewhere about maybe 17-3 is what I'm thinking.
Well, I'm just kind
You
of
get
strange. Yeah, I'm right there with you guys with LSU. And there's a couple of things. Obviously, Alabama, put more offense, had more yards on offense the last game. Missed 4 field goals, I believe, out of the 6 opportunities. They moved the ball well on them, which you can do on LSU. We've all kind of talked about that. They kind of have that risk reward. LSU made that play with the strip away at the end zone on one of probably the play of the year from that standpoint. So I think what the difference is in this game is going to be special teams. I think when you get in these big games, there's no comparison who has a better special teams. Alabama's just weak in that area, and I think everybody's kind of set up for Alabama to kind of pull this thing out, and I know it's going to be a very close game, but I think it's going to be higher scoring. The problem with Alabama is that unlike LSU's defense, kind of the risk reward that we talk about is that they basically just put up a wall that you just can't get past. And LSU proved that they couldn't really move the ball, but I think with Jefferson with a little bit of time, I think they'll have an opportunity to put some points up. But I think a big special teams play is going to work out.
And you're not going to see Jared lead back and forth like you did with that last time either. It's Jefferson's game.
And I think we're in a neutral site, so I think it's going to be more of an LSU. But I mean, you're talking about can you have the stakes any greater than New Orleans for an Alabama-Louisiana. Louisiana State. I mean,
Well, is it really a neutral field for LSU?
no. I mean, Alabama's right there. That's the problem.
Yeah,
Is Alabama's going to have some people there.
Oh yeah, I know.
And so,
But Baton Rouge is 40 minutes.
yeah,
Plus,
it is.
But the sponsors, the thing about this game is, with all national championship games, a lot of the tickets go to sponsorships.
Right.
Most of those are going to be local businesses, and I'm assuming most of those are LSU fans.
Yeah.
Or national chains that they.
Yeah.
Most of a large majority of the tickets sold outside the allotments in this situation are already spoken for
Yeah.
through corporate sponsorships and corporate purchases. You're right. So you don't necessarily have that, but you are going to have a larger fan base from LSU because I mean it's in.
Plus all the crazies that are probably just going to be outside the stadium getting drunk.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's going to, obviously the demand ticket's going to be nuts. If Auburn, Oregon shut down StubHub like it did last year, this is just going to shut it down a month ahead of time.
And just looking back at the season, I mean, look who LSU's played and beat.
I think it's just a magical year for them. I think they just have that thing, and the thing that I keep coming back to was, and I love telling all my Alabama friends because they think that they're going in there and just going to completely dominate, and they may do that. I would like to actually see LSU win. I hate LSU and Alabama, but there's nothing more joyful than actually seeing Alabama actually waddle in misery, and doing that would be twice to the same team, and that would be the ultimate misery for them. But Alabama was the one that made mistakes, and that's not a Saban trait.
Yeah.
But I just don't think they got the kicking game. I think the special teams is just a big difference, and I think offensively, I think Miles is kind of that gunslinger kind of a guy, and I think that's just what's going to happen.
It also just makes things a little bit awkward because let's say Alabama does go in there and win, then what do you do? Because LSU beat them. They played a much tougher schedule, so when they go to Crown, in theory they'll have won the game for the national championship. But is it going to be one of those shared national championship games?
Well, I mean, the BCS national champion has to go to the winner of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's set in stone.
Terms of just the other polls and everything else.
Well, everything else, I mean,
they're 1-2, but unless Alabama goes in there and destroys LSU, I don't see really how you're not going to have.
The only way you can have a split national championship because all the polls have to follow suit,
Except for the one.
except for the AP.
Yeah.
So the AP can still vote LSU in as number one if Alabama beats them.
Exactly.
But the others have to follow suit
Yeah.
and vote the national champion as the number one team. So, I mean, that's the only place you can have a split national champion is the AP and the BCS.
Yeah.
So that's going to do it for our picks. We'll end the roundtable by just going open mic like we do every week. John, anything you want to throw out there to everyone?
No, I'm just glad I got to come back. Happy holidays to everybody. Drive safe out there, enjoy it. I guess most people are going to be off the following Monday too, so it'll be a nice, should be a pretty nice long weekend.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to, the start of all these games. I'm originally from Philly, so it was good to see Temple last night. I'm not, and Tennessee also beat Wyoming earlier this year, so that kind of
Nice.
the duel. But just looking forward to everything. A little bit off topic, NBA does start coming up, and it's just going to be good to see those guys. I'm not going to say I'm the biggest NBA fan in the world, but I do enjoy watching them. It's good to see the people that work for those arenas get back to making some money, especially around the holiday season. So just happy holidays, and I guess we'll see you next year.
And they can find you on Twitter?
Twitter, John_Schultz, SCHULTZ.
Perfect. Blair?
You can find me at Blair Smiley, SMYLY, and again, happy holidays. I am not an NBA fan, even though I play basketball. I hate it. And although I do want to see all the people get back to work for crying out loud. But, pretty much done with Christmas shopping, I think, supposedly. So we'll see.
All right. Well, my wife tells me we've got most of ours done. I've been very lucky as she's, with two kids, it's really hard for us just to both go out and go shopping together. So I've left most of that up to her. We've got most of that accomplished. I'm with you, Blair. I'm not a huge NBA fan. Never have been. I will say that the product they put out the last 2 or 3 years has greatly improved over what it has been. And I will second the sentiments there. I mean, I hate that the fact the players' greed and the owners' greed, it's everybody's at fault there, caused a lot of hardworking, minimum wage type earners to struggle and be out of a lot of income that they would have, that needed for their family. I know what it's like to be a one-income family, not by choice, but by somebody else's choice. And I get to experience that even more now. And so I can appreciate how somebody else's boneheaded, selfish decisions affect a family, and it's not right. And I'm not going to go down that alley or get on that soapbox. It was wrong for them to do that. I commend the Major League Baseball, if I want to commend anybody, because they got their work stoppage issues mapped out, complete, got their contracts underway a whole year before their contract came up. I mean, they understand how important this stuff is, not only to the good of the game, but to the good of everyone around them to work that out. So I want to give them huge kudos for doing that. Now, that just sets it up for people to make lots of money, and that's great. There's lots of selfish reasons that they did that, but they understand the importance of it. The NFL, they had to do some. They still got it in before the regular season started, so I'm not going to give them full credit because they had to miss the Hall of Fame game. So, but you can follow me at P. Shane Bailey. That's my Twitter. Again, I'll throw out that the roundtable can be found at SECSRT. That's our Twitter. 2 days are still going on. We have another week left in the month of December. If you happen to be listening to this and we're 2 hours in, I can't believe we go this long. It just, time flies by. But if you're still hanging in and listening and it's not in December, that means you must like what you're listening to. So even if it's not 2 days, go out there, find us on Facebook at SECSRT, find us on Twitter. If you're listening now, I should have said this earlier, but we're going to be doing some live blogging during some of the SEC bowl games. So make sure you check out our website, SECSRT. As those ball games are going on, hop in, join the discussion, tell us what you're thinking of the plays, the refs, the catches, the fumbles, whatever's going on. We're going to be talking about it, doing some live blogging there on the website. So love to have you guys involved and participating in that. The best way we know how we're doing is by you telling us. So, go out there, communicate with us, get involved, join us up, and that's all for the roundtable today, and we will talk to you one more time before we end this year. Thanks so much.